Enoch Powell was so right, he was wrong. On the 20th of April 1968, 50 years ago today on this day of recording, the late Enoch Powell, Member of Parliament, gave a speech to the West Midlands Area Conservative Political Centre. It was just before the Labour government's Race Relations Bill was to go into its second reading, and his speech quickly became one of the most powerful and recognised commentaries on immigration in Britain. Enoch Powell was a politician, a scholar and a poet. He was the youngest professor in the Commonwealth and the youngest brigadier in the British Army. He was scholarly, an academic and a well-read man who cared about his country. He was often called racist, but he was a huge fan of India. He was posted in Delhi for military intelligence in 1945 and learned Urdu while he was there. And I recognise Powell used some bad language and nouns when referring to black people, and that's often a reason why he's called racist. I won't defend that language he used, but I will say that it was the 1960s and he was hardly the odd one out. Times have changed quite drastically since then. Douglas Murray argued in a piece for the National Review that Powell may have set back discourse on immigration because of things like this, and maybe that's true. And in his famous Rivers of Blood speech, he used this language, though he was quoting someone. There are misconceptions about this, and this is partly owing to the fact that the speech was never recorded in full. This was 1968, most people were just there taking notes for the newspaper stories. But it's actually also a result of people just not wanting to know or hear the truth. This was seen just this week in a Sky News broadcast which saw ethnic minority children reading from the Rivers of Blood speech. One person read the following quote, "Like the Roman, I seem to see the white River Tiber foaming with much blood." But that's not what Powell said. Powell said, "Like the Roman, I seem to see the River Tiber foaming with much blood." Now, if this is an error, it's negligent, but I somehow doubt it's an error. It's a convenient lie that's small enough to go unnoticed by many viewers who have never even read the speech or even heard of it. People just want to call Powell a racist and ignore the issues that he talked about. But as Powell said in his speech, what right did he have as a Member of Parliament to ignore what constituents told him? In one section of his speech, Powell referred to the black man having the whip hand over the white man. This is a quote often attributed to him, but he was actually quoting the words of a constituent who told him, "I have 3 children. All of them have been through grammar school and 2 of them married now with family. I shan't be satisfied till I have seen them all settled overseas. In this country in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man." That's why Powell followed up with, "I can already hear the chorus of execration. How dare I say such a horrible thing? And I simply do not have the right to shrug my shoulders and think about something else." And he's right. When constituents have concerns, it is the duty of the politicians, those who represent the constituents in Parliament, to consider their feelings and make their concerns known. And throughout Powell's speech, he made reference not to the race of immigrants, but to the fact that mass immigration would put a huge strain on infrastructure and resources and have a potentially negative effect on national culture. In the speech, he also said, quote, "Whole areas, towns and parts of towns across England will be occupied by sections of the immigrant and immigrant-descended population." And his prediction was correct. There are towns and cities across this country where the native population are minorities. This includes London too. And this issue is less about race. The result of this unprecedented level of immigration into Britain has transformed communities culturally. Just look at Tower Hamlets. This is an area with one of the highest Muslim populations in the country. This borough in London has seen some of the worst electoral fraud in the country, which went completely unchallenged for years because political correctness got in the way, just like Rotherham with the rape scandal. So Powell was right to raise the concerns of his constituents. Unpleasant language aside, the concerns of local people were justified. All these years on, we've seen terrible results of not immigration, but mass immigration of unskilled people who have no intention of integrating. There's a big difference. So Powell, like him or not, was right on many things, and I think that actually he was so right, he was kind of wrong. Even Enoch Powell, I don't think, would have ever thought that migration into the UK would reach such levels. He famously said, quote, "We must be mad, literally mad as a nation to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents who are for the most part the material of the future growth of the immigrant-descended population." 50,000? Give me 50,000 any day. In 2016, 588,000 people migrated to the UK, with 339,000 of our own people leaving the country that same year. That poses two problems: a replacement of people, and therefore culture, and a total net gain of still hundreds of thousands. I don't think Powell ever expected this. Many consider him to be the greatest Prime Minister we never had. And whatever you might think of him, regardless of unpleasant language he and other ministers may have used at the time, he could set an example for politicians today. He showed how important it is to listen to constituents and say what is politically inconvenient to say. That's why he suffered in politics and why he became a bogeyman for generations. But he enjoyed huge levels of support not just from Conservative voters, but from the working class communities who were the ones being negatively affected by mass immigration. Powell's legacy is much more than just one of controversy and alleged racism. His legacy is one of democracy, justice, and championing the rights of the little people. He was so right about this issue that in some ways he was wrong. He underestimated the problem. The crisis Britain faces today is something even Powell could never have imagined. If you want to see more from me and the rest of the Rebel team, remember to download our app on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, and like and subscribe.